Hello and welcome to this very special event. It's a pleasure to have you all joining us. The event is really is for anyone who's interested in therapeutic horticulture, and it's for those already working in the field, as well as if you are just diving into this wonderful world for the very first time. You're all very welcome. For those of you who don't know us, Trellis, we're the charity that supports therapeutic horticulture in Scotland, providing information, training, and good practice sharing in service of our mission to ensure excellent quality therapeutic horticulture services are available to all, and especially to those most in need. Trellis also supports practitioners and gardening groups to share experience, skills, and resources through our network of over 530 project groups in Scotland. Our new practitioner course, taught in partnership with 2 academic institutions here in Scotland, will open for enrolment next year. And we founded the UK Association for Professional Development of Therapeutic Horticulture, the ASTH, and we're working closely with Thrive to bring that work to fruition, which will be a practitioner register at its heart. We also founded World Therapeutic Horticulture Day, which is a global celebration of this amazing field that aims to achieve wide recognition for the work of practitioners everywhere so that more people might benefit. Find links to all this information and all our resources on the Trellis homepage. So turning to this evening's event, we're going to have a presentation from Rebecca of about 45 minutes, give or take. And then that will be followed by an opportunity for you to ask questions and have some discussion. Please do use the chat feature throughout the session to ask questions, and we'll keep an eye on that and either voice them to the presenter in the Q&A session, or you can use the reactions button at that time to raise your hand, and we'll call you to unmute and ask the question direct to Rebecca. Closed captions have been enabled, so you should be able to get subtitles if you need them. I think most of you know how to do that now, so I won't go into the detail of that, but just shout in the chat if you need help, guidance. We are going to record this session with kind permission of Rebecca, so please turn off your video if you don't want to appear. That's really just to share with those of us who couldn't make it tonight. And we will ask for feedback at the end, because we really love to know if we're providing something useful for you, and if we could do better, and just your thoughts in general. It always helps us improve what we provide. So it's a real privilege to welcome our speaker today, Rebecca Haller. Christine Capra, Rebecca's co-editor of the book, is also with us and will help answer any questions at the end. It's really wonderful to have 2 such illustrious figures from the field in our gathering today. Rebecca is, in just a short while, going to share her screen and presentation on Growing the Practice, the Evolution of the Foremost Textbook in the Field, Horticultural Therapy Methods. But first, just a few words about Rebecca. She is an affiliate faculty at Colorado State University, the co-founder, director, and lead instructor of the Horticultural Therapy Institute based in Denver, Colorado, and an active member of the credentialing work team of the American Horticultural Therapy Association, the AHTA. Key accomplishments in the field of horticulture therapy are a bit too numerous to cite here. Believe me, I've seen the biography, but include writing curricula, teaching students from across the US and the world, speaking at conferences and symposia, leading the editing and writing of several major textbooks. Rebecca's research has focused primarily on education in the field of horticulture therapy, as well as professional issues. She has served as president and board member of the AHTA and is active on work teams, including as contributing author of the competency exam that's currently in development. In professional practice, Rebecca developed a vocational horticultural therapy program in 1981 that's still operational. It is for adults with developmental disabilities, and she also provided horticulture therapy and therapeutic horticulture to an array of people at Denver Botanic Gardens. Turning to Christine Capra, she co-founded the Horticultural Therapy Institute in 2002 and is the program manager there. Previously, she helped manage the Horticulture Therapy Education Program at the Denver Botanic Gardens. She is co-editor of the book Horticultural Therapy Methods and editor of the online HDI newsletter, Making Connections. She has won numerous writing awards and been published in OT Weekly, Mountain Plain and Garden, Green Thumb News, People Plant Connections, AHDA News, Growth Point, and Health and Gardens, among many others. It's my very great pleasure to hand over the floor now to Rebecca Haller. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you, Fiona. I have to say I'm really honored to be asked to speak with you all today and have some time to interact as well. It's a great honor, and I so respect the work that Trellis, all the folks at Trellis have been doing, and the worldwide reach, and the incredible explosion of horticultural therapy and the therapeutic use of horticulture in all its different ways across the globe. This is our time. It's happening. And I'm very excited about the time we live in that regard. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get to the point of what I was asked to speak about here. Let me get to the PowerPoint. And this is the title of the presentation. Okay. And a really dorky picture of me with some anti-rhinum or snapdragons. So let's go on. This is the book that I was asked to speak about. And I need to change my view here just for a second so I can see a little bit better. Hang on. Okay. Okay, thank you for that. So this is a book that we were describing, and this just the third edition of this publication came out in April of this year. So we'll just get right to it and talk about the evolution and what is in this book and how it might be useful. So I kind of want to do that with this framework of like, well, why? Why did this textbook ever come to be to start with? And who was involved and how did that happen and what is in it and how it might be useful. So let's start with why. It really was an outgrowth of the years of teaching with an old textbook. And this book, no, so I'm going to change my view again. Okay. The book we were using had so much dated material that I found that it also didn't cover some really core techniques and methods in horticultural therapy that we really needed. So I would spend a lot of time teaching those methods, and you'll see in a later slide why that was, how that really helped to have the book. So that classroom tool was the whole impetus. We needed something that would be a more current and useful piece. So there we go. That's really the core of what we do at the Institute. Here are some descriptors of, again, what the book is intended to do. The other thing is that in the therapeutic use of horticultural therapy per se, and anything related to that, there really hadn't been a book that talked about those methods. And like in all our allied professions, there were tons of books on these subjects, but really nobody had written about them in horticultural therapy. There was no comprehensive guide that went over all of this stuff. So we really needed a piece like that was specific to horticultural therapy and also incorporated a lot of the same techniques and processes that you would use that we find in other allied professions as well. So I did a lot of reading of, besides looking at all the years of experience, I also looked a lot at many different textbooks, many different materials to help guide this book. So, and we're talking about the first edition at this point, and then moving on. So like I said, before the textbook happened, in teaching, there was a need to do a lot of explaining and teaching. You can see all the stuff on the left. explaining session development, describing how documentation can happen, looking, reading about different program approaches. And with the textbook, we could then apply that knowledge. So instead of explaining all about treatment planning, we could just summarize it and then move on in classes and really have more advanced training, have training that was more applied. And that's, I think, much more useful for anybody who's acquiring those skills and knowledge that you need to do horticulture in a therapeutic way. So you can see all this stuff on the right. It really allowed us to do. And to me, that's a huge, important tool. And I did have a slide of Christine. You can see her in person. She might look a little different now, but look at her in this lovely spot. So the two editors are Christine, Capra, and I, but lots of other people have been involved in the writing. And so I might note actually that the first edition of this book, Christine's last name was Kramer instead of Capra. So it's the same person, but different last name. Okay. There was also what I'm calling a garden of colleagues. So just a nod and a shout out to all these people that contributed. So lead authors, actually the authors of each of the chapters you see on the left, and those chapters that are listed there are the ones, or the authors of the chapters are in the latest edition, the third edition, because we did add a chapter. And then there were many other contributors. So Heather Benson, Sean Creamer, Marcia Vaughn did lots of practice examples. And then she helped gather those. And then people all over, particularly the US, but outside of the US as well, we had authors that gave examples from practice and really told about what they, maybe tips for practice and examples from practice. And then a ton of people contributed photos. So I really want to acknowledge that it takes to do a textbook in this field that is so diverse and so varied in how it's applied and with whom it's applied and what outcomes we're seeking, that it's important to have varied voices, to have a bunch of different people involved to contribute to anything that's like this as a textbook. So we did have a lot of really great people adding their words to this. The publisher is CRC Press. They're a part of Taylor and Francis Group. Their business really is textbooks and maybe a few journals. So they're very focused on that, and they're super supportive of us as editors and of the publishing work in this area. They also have a global reach, so they do market all over the world, and that's really great because we want the book to be used not just in the US, of course, but really anywhere that it has application. Earlier versions of this book I just might mention are let's see, I can't think, it's the first edition that is also in Spanish, and the second edition, I may have this wrong, but earlier editions before this third edition have been translated into Mandarin and Spanish as well. And I'd love to see more, maybe a French edition and maybe I'm not sure what else, but those are kind of pretty core languages in the world. So that's exciting for us as editors to see a reach that really, we hope, helps the practice of using horticulture for therapy be as well done and be professional in its approach. That's really the besides having a teaching tool, that's the other really main reason to create a book like this. Okay, so what is in the book? So what are some key things that we might find there? Let's look. Here are the names of the chapters in the third edition. And they're pretty much we find a lot of this info in the first and second editions as well, but we did add a chapter to this one, as well as revised and changed and added and revised and updated material throughout all of them. So I'll just let you sort of look at these. I don't need to read these to you, I don't think. Just to point out that that this is a book that doesn't talk about, it's not a book about the population served so much as how do you apply this work in all kinds of varied settings, but how do you do that? What's the kind of commonalities, and what's the some processes and techniques that you can use to really develop programs that are effective, which is the whole reason, right? That's why we're all doing this kind of work, and want to do in some cases. Okay. And notice that it also includes pieces for, how to work with people, as well as how to plan what we're going to do when we are together with them, that planning treatment session part. We're looking at how do we relate with people respectfully? How do we develop our tools for recording the outcomes of the work that we're doing as well? There are also new exhibits in this third edition that talk about horticultural therapy as a practice and also in the field. So lots of people tell about how a program may be evolved in their setting, or how they apply certain principles that are in the book and apply that out in the field. How is this happening in horticultural therapy? Another new material here is that there are now summaries of every chapter, so really making it useful as a textbook. I think the chapter summaries really help that textbook approach, as well as discussion questions. And this discussion questions can take you way beyond even the material that's in the book, and can get you thinking about things beyond it. Maybe there's something that's said in that chapter, and then, or in that particular exhibit, that then has discussion questions that you can think about and maybe use it as a teaching tool. And there also, we added a lot of different references, which I think is also a really good teaching tool. The other thing we've changed quite a bit here is I had added some material to the appendices. Greatly revised some of them and added a bunch of them. So the first one talks about, if you're working on a specific measurable objective, what kinds of things could you do? What activities might help support that? They give one example, and then what would you measure? So it's intended to have samples. It's not intended to be comprehensive. It's intended to give a sampling of that process. And then there's a resources in number 2. And number 3, the third appendix talks about the some forms that you might use to document horticultural therapy processes and treatment. And what I find is those documentation tools that we use primarily are really often very specific and customized to a specific situation, a specific person, a specific program, a specific objective they're working on. So to find those universal documentation tools is really challenging in this field, and I'm not sure that they lend themselves to person-centered care as much as we'd like. So when I teach that part in classes, we really emphasize the individualization of those kinds of tools. But there are some examples in the book, as well as some treatment strategies for different types of programs, and then a couple of more in-depth program examples. I'd like to take a minute and just sort of do a little mini class, I guess we could call it, and look at one piece that I'm pretty passionate about. I'm passionate about a lot of things, but one thing I think that in the therapeutic use of horticulture, if we can, as a whole in our practice, get really skilled at writing those measurable objectives that some people call short-term goals. Sometimes they're called SMART goals. Well, that's a little bit different. It's those, what they really are is if someone has a long-term goal to live independently, or long-term goal to get a job, or a long-term goal to improve their relationships, or whatever their long-term goal might be. The objective is the measurable short-term piece that would help the step towards that goal. So if we can get really good at writing objectives that are very, very clear, very measurable, very doable, really appropriate, really a good step towards that goal, I think that we're going to have, as a field in general, we're going to have more credibility. Probably the most important thing is we're going to have more success with the people we serve. So those participants will have outcomes that are really clear, and they will all be on the same page as for what we're asking them to do, what they're looking to achieve. Many times these are self-selected by the participant or the client. So an objective has three parts. One is, what is the really clearly observable desired behavior or performance? And the next part of the objective would be, under what conditions is expected to happen? So the conditions might be with what kind of support, or a time frame, or in certain settings, or situations that we'd expect to look for that really clear desired behavior. And then the third part of the objective is like, well, how do you measure? How do you know when you've completed it? So an objective it shouldn't be something that someone just works on forever. It's like, okay, you've got something you're working on. This is when we know it's finished, and the person can celebrate. Yay, I did it. It's like I've been successful. I've met that objective. So the more clear we can be, the more possible it is for somebody. So this is something we taught this in the textbook, but I want to just go a little bit more in depth here to give you a little taste of how you might apply some of that material. So let's look at one example of an objective. This one actually comes from a physical rehabilitation setting. So someone's had an injury of some sort, and they're working on physical rehabilitation. And those three parts that I just talked about, desired behavior, conditions, and criteria, that's what you see on the right. So the desired behavior is to use extended handle gardening tools. This is straight from the book, actually. And then under what conditions? Well, in planting bedding plants in a prepared raised bed without assistance. So there's really three conditions. They're going to be planting something that's the beds they're raised. Actually, there's four. It's a raised bed. It's been prepared, so maybe already dug a bit, and they're going to do that without assistance. So that's the conditions under which they would use that particular gardening tool. And the criteria is that they do it 3 times in 3 different sessions. They do it for 3 different sessions. So that's an example of how you could apply that measurable objective. I'd like to look at something and see if, I think I'm going to ask you to go into some breakout rooms for just a very short time and think about this for a minute. So in practice, let's say the long-term goal might even be broader than this, but let's just say that there is a kind of a medium-term goal of maintaining friendships. It's maybe an elder living in an assisted living kind of setting. So they're in a residential care of some sort with maybe assistance, maybe not long-term care, maybe not nursing care, but certainly some kind of assisted living. And we know that maintaining friendships is really important for longevity. That's a really great indicator of that. And so if we looked at that as kind of a longer term goal someone's trying to achieve, what are some steps that would help them achieve that would be measurable? So let's go back. Let's see if I can go back for a sec. Go back to that. Just see if I can go back a slide. It's not letting me. Why not? Okay. So what we're looking for is, again, what desired behavior that's measurable, that's observable. You need to be able to see it, hear it in some way. Okay. That would be a step towards maintaining friendships in assisted living. And then maybe what kind of circumstances or support. So under what conditions. And then you don't need to focus quite as much in this breakout on criteria. What I really want you to especially focus on is desired behavior. So maybe do a quick little 2-minute brainstorm of looking at, well, what are some behaviors that you could see or hear that would be behaviors we might help them work on to get to their goal of maintaining friendships. So I'd like you to just take 5 minutes in your breakout rooms and talk about that and come up with some ideas. And I'll call on a few of you to give us what you came up with when we come back together. So 5 minutes, very short. So don't spend a lot of time. Please just go right to the subject, and just maybe somebody could take the lead to take notes and just go through and think about, well, what are observable behaviors that might be that desired behavior? Under what circumstances we want that to occur? Okay, 5 minutes. Off you go to breakout rooms. I'd like to just take one or 2 minutes here to find out what kinds of things you came up with. So I'm going to just ask someone to raise their hand if they want to report what their group came up with very quickly, and I'll call on you. And you be willing, someone, come on. Okay, Elizabeth. Is your hand up, Elizabeth?
Yes.
Okay,
Hi.
you're on.
All right, so we made 2 distinctions. One, we were thinking about friendship and whether we were focused on maintaining friendships or starting new friendships. And we thought that those might be different strategies. And then also, what kind of friends? Are we looking for friends that existed before assisted living to maintain those friendships outside, or maintain the friendships you develop in assisted living? And so that would all be different strategies, we thought.
Excellent. So that is really good thinking. I mean, you didn't get to the desired behavior exactly yet, but that's really part of the thinking you need to do to get there. It's like, which are you talking about? And actually, the creating new friends could be a step towards maintaining friendships as well. So that could be a step towards it. So nice thinking. And let's go for Emma next. Go ahead, Emma.
Hi. So we had quite a list of different behaviors that could exhibit friendship, but we thought things like seeing people listening to one another, helping one another, working as a pair, taking it in turns to do things, and just seeing people having conversation, kind of learning about one another. So they might be the kinds of things we would look for. And then we started thinking about a couple of different activities that might encourage people to, we focus more on kind of working together and taking turns. So we thought of some activities for that. And we also thought maybe ways that people would have to interact while they were doing an activity together. So it would be a kind of joint project that might end in, that would carry on over a few weeks.
That would encourage that cooperation or sharing and such. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is the next step. When there's clear objectives, that the next step is to think about, okay, well, how can we help them achieve that? And how we set things up, what we present, what we allow, what's offered for them to do, how that's structured is going to be a big part of that. I think our identifying what exactly the behaviors are we're looking for. You did a really good start on that. You did a lot in 5 minutes. Wow. But also, so you would then state those in a way that it might be something like, I'm trying to think of one that you said, make conversation with another person in the group, or something that would have this action verb that you would be able to see them doing, or it might be take turns while doing an activity, or so we would apply that then as a measurable objective, as that desired behavior would be that stated action that you're looking for on their part. And then you want to separate the stated action from what it is you're going to have them do. So the action's more the outcome, what you're trying to get them to do, but what they actually will be doing in horticulture would be a strategy to help them get to that point. So you want to keep those sort of as separate pieces. This is one of the more challenging things that people find in horticultural therapy in doing this work and applying this. So I wanted to pick something that I thought you'd all be up for the challenge of, something really difficult. So we can talk about that more in just a minute. I want to go ahead and leave some time for Q&A, and you'll have a chance to think about this more and talk about this more during the Q&A. But let's go ahead now, and I think we'll just have 2 of you report in the interest of time. I'd love to hear what all of you came up with, but we would go way over time if we did that. So let's do that. And then, but I thank you for spending the time. And I think that when you're doing treatment planning and you're working with people, anytime you can find a way to communicate with your colleagues about this stuff, not just your colleagues that are maybe you're working with directly, but get together with people that know the therapeutic use of horticulture as well, and find ways to communicate about this stuff. It will really help you. Okay, let me get back to screen sharing just a sec here. Okay, this is what you just worked on. And then if we were to take it to be a complete objective, we would also include under what conditions they would be doing that. Would it be indoors, outdoors? Would it be with support? Would it be with prompting? You know, any of that kind of stuff. And then for how many times, like when do they know they've met that, they've satisfied that or been successful? When do you know? When does that person know? When is it go into the, you know, you can document that. Okay, so we're back now to the book and some of the uses of it. One is really to, again, like I said, focus on that methods that are applied in the therapeutic use of horticulture, because you can find a lot of these methods that are in other allied professions, but this book really helps you hone in on how do you do this using horticulture as your medium, as your modality. And one of the things that this book is intended for is for people getting training, acquiring those skills and knowledge in horticultural therapy and therapeutic horticulture and social and therapeutic horticulture and all the many names we have for the varied aspects of that. But another intention of the book is continuing education, to just keep ourselves in, you know, maybe you already are in practice, maybe you're already doing some work in this area. So something like a book like this can help you in continuing to upgrade and think about how your processes, your techniques that you're using and that sort of thing. And then it also is going to, I think, be really important for people that are learning or earning credentials. And I especially am referring here to, in the US, there's going to be about a year from now, maybe even a little less than a year from now, there will be a competency exam in horticultural therapy, so that a person could become board certified in horticultural therapy. And that exam is going to will have a lot of material, some of which would be covered in this book. So it'll be a useful piece for preparing for that sort of a thing too. Okay, I think we're ready for some questions, and I'll let you imagine this incredibly fragrant rose for a moment while you're thinking of questions, and then I'll take it away, take the slide down so I can see you, and we'll have time to see what's on your mind. Okay.
Thank you, Rebecca. That was incredible. Thank you. I love the sensory moment at the end. I think we all appreciated that, especially now the roses are few and far between in our gardens in Scotland anyway. Yeah. I'd just like everyone to get your questions ready and put your hand up. of comments, really. More, first of all, you mentioned right at the beginning, a number of times I've said that in the last 2 or 3 years, there's a feeling that therapeutic horticulture, our profession, the time has come for us. You know, it's beginning to be so popular and beginning to be recognized finally, and there just seems to be this coalescing of interest around the subject. So it's great that you see that too and you feel it in the States. I think it's really, all of us are involved in the practice and in education and so on. Your presentation, and you even managed to give us a little bit of teaching time, which was amazing, and so we all really appreciate that. Thank you so much for all that you've shared. You're not done yet. You're going to get some questions, I'm sure. But a couple of points, a couple of things for me just about the book itself. We're new course next year, and we've asked for the library to order copies, the college library. They already had an early edition, I'm pleased to say, but we want them to have the best new edition, of course. It's in the book that really sum up and clarify our work. For example, the practitioner does not heal the client. They facilitate a relationship between the client and the garden and nature that creates the opportunity for healing. And those kind of moments when you read through it and you suddenly recognize what you've been going on about for a long time, and it really brings it together. Those moments are really great, and there's a lot of that in the book. And it's so densely referenced as well, which I think adds another layer of value to it that perhaps isn't always recognized, but there are so many references to research and other materials that it really helps establish our practice as an evidence-based one, but it also provides so much extra reading opportunities for people who want to go and read those papers and find out more. And also it helps people make the case, you know, to show to providers and policy makers and commissioners and health insurance companies, you know, why this should be adopted and more widely used. I thought, coming back to your outcomes.
Let me just add something there real quick,
Sure.
Fiona, could I? So
Yeah.
I think that those references I think are crucial, because it's not just, oh, you know, the authors think, you know, we've certainly drawn on many, many years of experience. That when you have those references, it really does lend the credibility, that whole layer of layering. And also, yeah, you could read for the rest of your life if you read all that stuff. but I hope it does add some support for what it is we're saying in the book. Yeah,
I agree. Not that your word.
Interrupt you. So.
No, it was your presentation, so someone needs to interrupt me. I just want to come back to your the amazing clarity on assessment and setting objectives, because this is something that we talk about a lot to try and distinguish therapeutic horticulture and horticulture therapy as a practice. You know, there's a very big difference between something just being therapeutic because, you know, I like being in the garden, I find it therapeutic, and someone finding that helpful and soothing, and then a targeted therapeutic intervention for someone with defined needs led by a skilled practitioner. So that was really important. And of course, the template documents are so highly valued by many in the field. But I just wondered, because the objectives come out of assessment, don't they? And they're a central part of the practice. And you've already hinted that this is one of the areas that's difficult to teach and difficult for students maybe to grasp. I wondered if you could say more about how you find teaching that, and whether you see it as one of the most vital parts of teaching practitioners.
Well, first of all, absolutely, it's one of the most vital parts. It is what sets it apart from working with people in the garden as a layperson, and you know, it really does bring it into that professional application of it. So to me, it's a crucial skill. And as far as teaching it, we practice and practice and practice. I think the more you do it, the more skilled you'll become at it. So the students do a lot of practicing. I think that the interesting thing is some people will work in settings where they may not be asked to do this because the employer doesn't necessarily understand their skill set, or that if they're really applying this skill well, they may become a model for the people where they work. That I've seen that happen several times, whereas other practitioners look to them because they've acquired this skill so well. But I just think it's practice. We look at many examples. We have assignments around it in the classroom. A lot of going over and considering how you could write it, case studies, case examples, and then looking at those, I think, are also really useful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And like every skill in this field, in any therapeutic field, we never get it perfect. We're always learning and practicing. So it's good to know that it's endless practice.
It does take that, but it also is that you do sometimes need to change how you're thinking a little bit, and that so that you can articulate this stuff in a way that is really clear. So the more clear it can be, the more measurable, the more observable you can state these things. The bottom line is that's going to help the people you serve, because if it's clearly stated, they really have a target of something to work towards. And if it's a little more nebulous, then it's really not as helpful to them. So that's another, reason for why it's so important, I think.
Thanks. I'm going to be quiet now and invite Julie to put her question. Would you like to speak, Julie, and unmute, or I can voice it if you prefer?
Thank you. That's really interesting, Rebecca. I've got your first edition here, but I'm contemplating upgrading. Yeah, I was just wondering in addition to the skills you've just talked about, what are the key skills that you think any current horticultural therapists should really focus on developing?
Well, always continue to work on your relationship with the client, with the people you're serving. Always continue to work on how your techniques for working with people, your listening skills, all of that. That's always important. That's an ongoing, lifelong process in some ways, I think. And also looking at, I think, depending on what skill set you come into it with, it's essential that you know horticulture, that you know gardening, because the broader your knowledge of gardening, the more of a repertoire you have, the more of a toolkit you have for coming up with those activities, those session plans, those things that can address certain things that people are working on, certain objectives or certain goals. And so I think that's kind of ongoing too, which I don't take for granted, because it's, let me think how I want to say this. Give me a sec. That sometimes we undervalue our horticulture knowledge as a field. We think, okay, it's an interdisciplinary field. We need the therapy skills. We need the human service skills. We need the horticultural therapy skills. We also need the horticulture skills. And sometimes we don't value the horticulture as much as those other pieces, but it's really important as well, because it does add to our again, our choices, and also adds to our ability to present materials and present sessions and activities with great enthusiasm and knowledge, and your own sense of awe can really come through for everybody else.
That's lovely. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's really good answer. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Christine, is there anything you would like to add? Please just jump in if there is.
Well, I think, certainly at the Institute, we are great advocates that the juice of this field is horticulture. It's really the magic. And, you do, as Rebecca said, you have to have all those other skills, but without getting your hands in the dirt and actually growing things, the magic just isn't there as much. And so I hear to that.
Thank you. Jenny, would you like to voice your question? Jenny Simpson? Yes, she's there.
Hi, sorry, just trying to find the buttons. Yes, I think you might have really touched on this already. Both Rebecca, this is a question for both Rebecca and Christine, but you mentioned the difficulties of teaching such a person-centered approach, and that's something that we find when we're trying to teach as well, that you're trying to cut across all these people with lots of different backgrounds that are coming to learn about therapeutic horticulture. And how do you encourage your students to understand a person-centered approach? I'd be interested in.
How do we help them do that? I think with just continuing to emphasize it and to think about, we do of course go into looking at some characteristics of different, general characteristics of somebody who might have had a stroke, or somebody who might be aging, or various people we might serve. But it's always about that everybody's an individual, so we really look at learning about that person is so critical. And I'm not sure this field will ever have really strict protocols, because we don't want to lose that individualized approach. So somebody who's gone through, moved into a nursing home, left their home and moved into a nursing home, is somebody who's done that. Somebody else who did that is somebody else. And so they might have some commonality, but they're unique human beings. So we really, I think the way we teach it is just continue to emphasize that and encourage students to know the general characteristics of some of the people you might serve, but understand that you have to dig, you have to really seek out who is that person. And part of that is also giving them a voice. So even during treatment planning, they have a voice. It's their objective and their goal, not yours. So continue to emphasize that is important as well. You're helping them work on it. You have a goal to help them work on it, but it's their goal. If it's not, it has no meaning and probably won't be successful. So
Thank you.
I don't know how else to answer that exactly, Jenny.
No, that's lovely. We tend to use the phrase, get to know your clients, and we keep saying this repeatedly. But thank you, because
I'm glad you are. That's
great. You're echoing what we're finding.
Yay! That's good. That's good.
Thanks.
David, would you like to unmute?
Okay, so David is my husband. I'm sorry. I'm borrowing his, we share a computer. So I appreciate so much of the conversation we're having. And I think Rebecca, I think you kind of touched on it. I think you answered my question somewhat, where I have I shouldn't say lots, there's never enough knowledge of the horticulture realm. And I'm confident with that aspect. It's the classes or the knowledge of the therapy, the physical limitations. And I know we've discussed in one of the classes, the texture struggles with some individuals. And are there classes or books or another way to build more knowledge in that realm of how to assist the client? Or is it what you were saying, getting to know your client, because everyone is an individual?
Well, yes, but there are some techniques, really acquired and getting really, go ahead.
Oh, that was my question.
Yeah. So there are techniques that you really want to become familiar with and comfortable with, and things like even how being conscious and really aware of how you're presenting instructions. Or is it verbal? Is it written? Is it large print? Is it on a board somewhere? Is it one step at a time? Are you doing a demonstration? Even things like, are you giving certain levels of prompting, or assistance, and becoming really also adept at not over helping, but really looking at those different levels of assistance, those different levels of intervention. So those kind of things are of course really important. And when it comes to honing in on a specific sort of population, again, I'm using that, as a category of people. Of course, you need to understand that, some people might be sensory seeking, some people, and like if they're on the autism spectrum, they might be sensory avoiding. So really, the more you can learn about those kinds of things, that's important too. And honestly, if you're going to specialize with a particular type of clientele or people that you're serving, you would go in more in depth into learning more about them through everything from classes to books to in-service trainings are fabulous for that. So that's where you would be trained, even provided some training at a particular facility, or you might be attending seminars on that particular population. So again, it's so varied, so many different applications.
I know, yes.
You can't really learn it all in one place. You kind of have to, if you're specializing in a certain area, you need to dive into that more as well.
So anything, okay, that helps. Keeping my feelers out for those opportunities.
Maybe there's even a professional association related to that particular type of setting or population that you could get some additional training from or something like that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Helen, would you like to unmute and ask your question? Thank you. And then this is probably going to be the last one we have time for, and then we will have to begin to wrap up. We're already over.
Thank you. So I was wondering if, Rebecca, you would consider horticultural therapy as a type of nature-based education when it comes to facilitating climate change communication or advocating for climate action, and if horticultural therapy has in some way transformed, or if you have examples to show, like, by participating in horticultural therapy, there's benefits in terms of transforming participants' perception or understanding in terms of the relationship between human and the non-human world, and how that might, address, sort of issues with certain population groups, like, with eco-grief, eco-anxiety and things like that. I'm just curious about that.
Well, certainly a very important and very timely topic that you're asking questions about, and see if I can answer that without going on for 10 minutes. I think that, for one, that I do think horticultural therapy is one of the nature-based therapies. It's very special in that it's one of the very few that actually has something where we're interacting with and doing something with, so there's the horticulture piece that brings it to another, active participatory piece to it. And I think that how we model how we're gardening, how we talk about how we're gardening, how we think about, if eco-anxiety is especially something you want to work on, help people that you're working with want to address. I mean, we all need to some degree, right? But if it's something that's been specified as something you're working on, then you can use the garden as even our techniques that we use in gardening can help, sequester carbon in our garden plots, and grow things that don't require a lot of extra watering, or all these many different eco-friendly ways that we could garden could be one way. So that sometimes if any of us global citizens have a way to feel like there's some little thing we can do in how we're approaching something like gardening, that can help that anxiety because we feel like we're taking some kind of action. And I think that we're going to increasingly see people really think about that more in how we are doing work, whether that be in mental health, wellness kinds of programs, or whatever. I don't know if that answered your question. Do you want to Has that kind of
Yes,
answered
yeah.
your question? Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Rebecca and Christina. And thank you for all your questions. Just a couple of last questions from me. I noticed the additions were getting more frequent. We had number 1 in 2006, then 11 years later, number 2 in 2017, and then 8 years, I think, later, the 3rd edition this year. Does that mean we can expect a lovely new shiny edition, 4th edition in 2030?
No, do you see that Christine's hair got gray doing that 3rd edition?
Do you see this? No,
No,
absolutely not.
it is a lot of work. I will just say.
Sorry.
No, we have a publisher. Our publisher
know.
is the one that has really pushed us to do that. But the thing is, to do a different edition, you do at least like 30% change. And there were some things, anytime you write, if any of you've written and published, you know that as soon as it goes to press, you almost quickly after that, you realize some things you wish you could change. So I really think we made some big improvements in this last one. I hope to not do it too soon, to be honest.
Yeah, I echo that.
Yeah.
Christine's
if
very
it's out of
quiet
date,
there.
of course we would do something, but I don't think it will be out of date too soon. Yeah.
Sure. I don't think so either. There's a lot there that's so relevant. And finally, you kind of close up the book at some stage, or possibly this is Diane Ralph's foreword, with a view to the Spanish and Mandarin translations in to become active collaborators in the development of the profession. So all of us being called on to meet the needs of the future growth of the field, to help keep developing it, new protocols, new learning, and to be part of that process, which I thought was lovely, and I really enjoyed that. But do you see that happening? Do you see a community of together to develop new protocols to meet evolving need and win recognition, or do you think we're kind of still caught in a very slow process there?
Well, Fiona, I tell you that you were kind of cutting out in your question, so I'm not sure I really understood the entire question. But so I don't know if I should ask you to repeat it or try to answer what I think you were asking. It seems to me.
It was.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just your call to action, the evolving profession, and help it develop. Do you see that happening around the world?
I do. I do. I think that we could do better at, we'll call it cross-pollination across cultures, across countries. But I'm seeing certainly a lot of conversations within Europe, and I think across the world, I'm seeing people talk to each other more. One of those forums is the International People Plant Symposia that are happening. I think that's, that was in England last year, and I think those can help us do some of that, where we talk across borders a bit. But the more we do that, the better. We're not going to, it doesn't mean we homogenize and we make everything the same necessarily. But I think there's strength in numbers. There's strength in, we can all learn from each other. So the more we can do that, the better. And not necessarily to close the gates or make it all, like I said, exactly the same, but to really enhance our work across the world.
Thank you. I would second that. Well, it's been fantastic hearing from you, Rebecca and Christine, this evening, and a real treat to hear about the book from your perspective and hear about all the developmental thinking that's gone into this latest edition and the earlier ones that it's built upon, and all the many years of teaching that you've both been involved in. I'm sorry if I'm breaking up. I'm trying to speak quickly so we don't run over too much, and also clearly so that my signal doesn't make it impossible. I'd like to invite everyone to show their appreciation with the reactions button or unmute and give some applause, because I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. Really, we appreciate that so much. Thanks for spending your time with us. We are going to send you a link to the survey, and if you have any further questions that you'd like to follow up, you can put them in there, and we will try to address them. Rebecca had her email address in the final slide, so we can put that into the recording.
Let me get that. Yes.
Just into the chat, if you don't mind. Lots of love and appreciation in the comments there. Thank you to everyone who already donated to Trellis. If you have enjoyed today's session, please consider making a donation in the future to support our work. We're very grateful for each and every contribution, and I hope you will go and buy your copy of Rebecca's book. I think we've all got ours on order at Trellis. It's time to bring the session to a close, so thank you all for giving up your evening or your afternoon and your morning to spend with us. I'm glad it is meeting with so much appreciation in the chat, and thank you for all your contributions and questions and comments. That's been really helpful. We'd love to hear your feedback, as I said, so please do take a moment to send it to us. And I never did get David's wife's name or partner's name.
Oh,
but
sorry. Yes, my name is Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
Chris is always hungry to learn more and very appreciative. So I think we'll end with that one. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.